I'm going to begin taking us all the way through Franz Schurmann's The Logic of World Power, an inquiry into the origins, currents, and contradictions of world politics. Now, it's kind of a monstrosity. It's very big. It's like a Bible, but I'm not going to take everything, right? I'm not, in the past, even I read some of it in the past, including other books, other passages, other articles. I would read things in bulk. I'm going to be a little more selective this time, but I'm going to be clear. And I'm going to be like very specific when I point things out as far as connecting to the ideology that I espouse, democratic republicanism, as well as like the kind of history political brain that I have that's very influenced by Franz Schurmann, as well as Michael Mann, who wrote The Sources of Social Power. There's 4 volumes. Daniel Lazaire, of course, Eric Foner. The way these guys the way these authors, intellectuals, researchers, they categorize things is what I look at is so important. It really helps to determine what we're talking about, simplify the argument, make it easier to understand, and understand the history also. So even in his foreword, Sherman begins with something that is very connected to the ideology of democratic republicanism, and the ideology that is a wing of Marxist Unity Group right now, under mostly Gil Schaefer, but includes yours truly as well as Luke Pickrell and a few others. If I had to nail them down, I could give you some people, but that ideology, that open ideology, that has to do with freedom of speech, free and open debate. Disagreement is good. Um, what is a party? It doesn't have to be so structural and infrastructurally built. A party is a group of people dedicated to things, right? Dedicated to a political goal. Now, so even in this foreword, Sherman says something that is very much connected to this and shows, where he was during the anti-Vietnam War movement, right? And his role. Basically, this book came out towards the end of it, right? But but this book was basically a summation of the lessons learned, and how world politics operated at the time, and to a very large extent, still structurally operates that way, both domestically and internationally. So in his forward, he goes, he says, stimulated and supported by IPS, which is the Institute for Policy Studies, a think tank. They were alone pretty much in analyzing and criticizing the roots of the Vietnam War early on. Anyway, so the Institute for Policy Studies, right? Um, he said was supported by that. I became a participant in setting up a comparable, though much more modest, institute in San Francisco, the Bay Area Institute. Few experiences have taught me so much as working with an organization that started from seed, that it has had to survive independently without the succor of university or bureaucratic support made it clear what an organization really is. A group of people who believe in certain goals or causes, working together with some degree of effectiveness and efficiency. The cause was opposition to the war, and in a much broader sense to imperialism. Now, that is very much in line with thinking that was part of the New Left, as particularly SDS, in an open organization, and we're all dedicated to a strategy with different tactics, and we learn through practice which tactics work and don't work. Now, Gill took that, right? But it's now part of this current movement for a democratic constitution, for a democratic republic. And, the ideology is so important. It puts that democratic, transparent system, organization, um, debate, speech at the forefront of all of the conversation and the fight about what the system in the future has to look like, what this fight is about. And so, like, when you read people, everyone has limitations, right? So Sherman's limitation is he gets everything so right, right on, and he's one of the most helpful as far as writers in the 60s and 70s and 80s in categorizing our political system, both domestically and internationally, and how we understand it and how important ideology is. Um, but he misses out in still technically calling the United States a democracy. But again, you learn some people have limitations to the right, but they're so important. Certain political leaders had limitations, but they were so important to get us to where we are today, despite it feeling like baby steps and it really being baby steps. But still, these events had to take place. We had to go through that to get here, even though it feels like maybe sometimes we take a few steps back. It's a journey. It's a journey, and it takes time um, to really make real progress. But it takes those events. It takes those experiences